My own aunt reported me to Child Protective Services while I was raising my niece. She tried to have Lily taken from me so that her son Brendan could adopt her instead. I want to say that sentence clearly and simply right at the start because I spent a long time being unable to say it at all. Not because I was confused about what happened, the facts are straightforward and documented, but because there is something about a betrayal. That comes dressed in love that takes a very long time to stop looking like concern. Patricia did not look like a villain. Patricia looked like a grieving aunt who was worried about a 5-year-old girl living in a one-bedroom apartment in Columbus, Ohio, with a 31-year-old uncle who had a full-time job and a deep and genuine terror of failing her. That's what I was. Terrified of failing Lily. And Patricia looked at my terror and found a lever. Let me tell you what was good first. Because I need you to understand what I was protecting before I tell you how hard someone worked to take it. My sister Renata died of an aneurysm on a Sunday evening in March when Lily was 4 years and 2 months old. Lily was with Renata's neighbor when it happened, which is the only mercy in the whole thing. Renata was 28. She had Lily on her own, had raised her on her own for 4 years with more grace and humor and competence than most people bring to parenting with every possible advantage. Our parents were gone by then Dad when we were teenagers, Mom 3 years before Renata. It was the two of us, and then it was just me. I wanted to tell you what the 6 months before Renata died looked like, because they were some of the best months I'd had in years. Renata and I had dinner together every Wednesday, not because we planned it originally, it had just become the thing that happened. She would bring Lily, who had strong opinions about restaurant bread, and would tell the server her name was Princess Lily and then wait to see if they played along. Some of them did. The ones who did got her approval. The ones who didn't got a look that Renata and I still laughed about later, in the way that you store moments that are going to have to last longer than you expect. My apartment, the Columbus one-bedroom Patricia would later call unstable, had a wall where I had put up a magnetic whiteboard. I had done it originally for work, for tracking projects. Within 2 weeks of Lily starting to visit regularly, the whiteboard was covered in her drawings, magnetic art supplies she had discovered and immediately weaponized. There were horses that were more abstract than representational. There was a drawing of me that gave me 7 fingers, which she defended strongly when I pointed it out. There were her letters, which she was just learning, and which got a little better every week in a way that you could actually see if you looked at them in order. That whiteboard was mine, my apartment, my life, my niece. And someone was about to try to tell a government agency that this was not good enough. I need to be honest about the small signals I missed, because I think honesty about that matters. The first signal was at a family dinner at Patricia's house in February, about 6 weeks before Renata died. Patricia said something at the table, said it casually, parenthetically, not as an accusation that Lily seemed a little thin. Lily was perfectly healthy. A pediatrician had just said so. I filed it as Patricia being Patricia and moved on. The second signal came in a phone call in March, the week before everything happened. Patricia called to check in and asked, very gently, whether I had thought about what would happen to Lily if something were to happen to Renata. I thought it was a morbid thing to say. I told her Renata was fine. I said I'd be there for Lily regardless. Patricia said, of course you would, sweetheart, of course. That pause after. I did not hear what was in it. The third signal, which I only understood much later, was Brendan being at every family gathering for the 4 months after Renata died. Brendan, who had historically been a Christmas and Thanksgiving cousin, was suddenly at Easter and at the July 4th gathering and at a cousin's birthday in August. He was kind to Lily. He brought her things. He and his wife were warm and present and lovely. I thought they were grieving. I thought we all were, and this was how they were showing up. I was right. And I was also completely wrong about what was happening underneath it. But that's only the beginning of what I didn't understand yet. Because what I didn't understand was that while I was grieving and working and learning how to be a parent in real time, someone was building a case against me, quietly, systematically. With photographs and notes and the contact information of Lily's pediatrician and the telephone number of a neighbor who had seen Lily through a window twice. And then one Tuesday in November, 8 months after Renata died, my phone rang during my lunch break. I was in my car in the parking lot of the office building where I work. I didn't recognize the number. I let it go to voicemail. I finished my sandwich. I pulled up the voicemail 3 minutes later and listened to it. It was a CPS investigator named Marla Okafor. She said she had received a report expressing concern about the welfare of a child in my care. She said she would like to schedule a home visit. She said her number was there if I had questions. I sat in that parking lot for a very long time. I want to tell you about that parking lot because I think the specific details of where you are when your life changes tell you something important about how those moments feel from the inside. It was a Tuesday, the second week of November. Columbus in November has a specific kind of cold that is not dramatic. It is not the cold of somewhere that gets real winters, with snow that commits to itself and stays. It is the cold of a city that can't quite decide, that goes from 40 degrees to 60 and back again in the same week, that keeps the sky the same flat gray for 3 weeks without variation. The parking lot I was in had a chain coffee place at one end and a dry cleaner at the other, and the asphalt had been recently repaved, which meant it was very black and very flat and reflected the gray sky with more fidelity than I wanted. I had Lily's picture as my phone background. She was laughing at something off camera I had taken it the week before when we were at the park, and she had just discovered that if you stomp in a specific dry leaf pile, it makes a very satisfying sound, and she was in the middle of discovering this, eyes wide, foot mid-stomp, completely delighted. I stared at that photo for a long time after I listened to the voicemail. I did not call the investigator back. I did not call Patricia. I did not call anyone in the family. I sat in that parking lot with my lunch half eaten on the passenger seat, and I did 3 things in order. I looked at Lily's photo. I breathed. I called Marcus. Marcus is my oldest friend, and also by a coincidence that I am very grateful for, a family law attorney in Columbus. We had been friends since college. He had been at Renata's funeral. He had come over 3 times in the months after to sit with me and not require me to be okay. He was the right call. I told him about the voicemail. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, don't call the investigator back without me. Don't call Patricia. Don't call anyone in the family. Send me the voicemail. I said, okay. He said, you're going to be fine, but you need to let me do some things first. I went back to work. I sat at my desk. I answered emails. I attended a meeting. At 3:30, I picked up Lily from aftercare at her preschool, and we drove home, and she told me about a conflict she'd had with a classmate over who got to be the horse in a game, and I listened to every word of it. And I made her pasta for dinner with the specific level of butter she prefers, and I helped her draw horses at the kitchen table until she decided it was time for a show, and I sat next to her on the couch while she watched it. And when she fell asleep against my arm, I sat very still because I did not want to wake her, and because I needed to feel the specific weight of her leaning against me, and know that it was real, and that it was mine. Then I put her to bed. Then I called Marcus back. Marcus had already pulled what he could. He said the report had been filed 6 days earlier. He said the reporting party was listed as a family member who had concerns about the child's housing stability, access to appropriate nutrition, and consistency of supervision. He said there was also a corroborating statement from a non-family witness. I said, Patricia. He said, most likely. Do you know who the witness would be? I didn't yet. I found out who filed it before I confronted Patricia about it. That matters. I want to be clear about the sequence of things, because the sequence is what makes this particular story so specific and so damning. I found out because Marla Okafor, the CPS investigator, came to my apartment on a Thursday morning. I had taken the day off work. Marcus had advised me to have the apartment as it normally was not cleaned up in a way that was performative, just normal. It was normal. The kitchen was clean, whiteboard. Wall had Lily's latest drawings on it. Lily's room had her bed, her books arranged by size the way she liked them, her stuffed animals in what she called their assigned positions. It was the apartment of a person who lived there with a child. It was fine. Marla Okafor was professional. She was thorough. She asked me questions in a tone that was neither accusatory nor reassuring, just methodical. She asked about our routine. She asked about Lily's school, her pediatrician, her diet. She asked about my job and my income and my support system. She asked if Lily had other families she spent time with. I answered every question honestly and completely. Before she left, she asked if I could provide her with contact information for Lily's pediatrician. I gave her the pediatrician's name and number. And I felt, in that moment, something I recognized as a specific feeling of having done something that was going to matter later. Because I knew what the pediatrician would say. I had been in every appointment. I had asked every question. I had the developmental milestone checklist on my phone because I was terrified of missing something. Dr. Priya Anand had, at Lily's last checkup, said, she is doing remarkably well for a child who has been through what she has been through. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Marla Okafor did not tell me that when she called Dr. Anand, she was going to learn something Patricia had not anticipated. She did not tell me that Patricia had already called Dr. Anand's office the previous month with concerns, and that Dr. Anand had documented that call, and that the documentation noted the doctor had found no basis for the concerns raised. She did not tell me any of this. She didn't need to. I found out later. But first, I need to tell you about Patricia. I called Patricia 3 days after Marla Okafor's visit. I had spoken to Marcus. I had his guidance. I knew what I was allowed to say and what I needed to not say. I called Patricia because I needed to hear it from her, not because I expected it to change anything. She picked up on the second ring. I said, Patricia, did you file a CPS report about Lily? There was a pause, not a long one. And then she said, I did. And I want you to know that I didn't do it lightly, and I didn't do it to hurt you. I did it because I am worried about Lily, and I think she deserves a conversation about whether the arrangement she's in is the best possible arrangement for her. I said, she's in an arrangement where she is loved and safe and healthy. Patricia said, I know you love her. Nobody's questioning that. But love and resources aren't always the same thing. And I think we both know that what you can give Lily and what Brendan can give Lily are not the same. I want you to sit with that sentence. Not because it was cruel, it wasn't said cruelly. It was said with the specific gentleness of someone who has rehearsed it and believes every word. It was said the way a person talks when they have decided they are right and the conversation is a formality. What Brendan can give Lily. She had already decided. The report was not a question. It was an announcement. I said, okay, Patricia. She said, I hope you know this comes from love. I said, I hear you. I hung up. I did not say anything else. I sat on my couch in the apartment with the whiteboard wall and the specific silence of a home where the child is at school and the caregiver is alone. And I thought about the phrase, what Brendan can give Lily. And I thought about Brendan being at every family gathering for 4 months. And I thought about the timing of things. And I called Marcus and I said, how did we find out when Brendan contacted the adoption agency? Marcus said, tell me why you think he did. I told him. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, give me 48 hours. What Marcus found in those 48 hours was the thing that changed the legal shape of everything. Brendan had contacted an adoption agency in Columbus on September the 19th. The CPS report had been filed on November the 3rd. That is 45 days of gap. 45 days during which Brendan had an active inquiry with an adoption agency and Patricia had been building her case. And Lily had been going to preschool and drawing horses on my whiteboard and eating pasta with a specific level of butter she preferred. Marcus explained what this meant. He said, the adoption inquiry, timestamped 6 weeks before the CPS report, establishes that there was a plan in place before the report was filed. That makes this significantly more than a concerned family member raising worries. That makes this a coordinated action to transfer custody, and it significantly undermines the report's credibility with the investigator. I said, can we get the records? He said, the agency won't release them voluntarily, but we can request them as part of a formal guardianship proceeding, and we can flag the timeline to the CPS investigator. I said, file the guardianship proceeding. He filed it the following week. And then in one of those specific ironies that only happen in real life, something else surfaced that I had not expected. Donna. Donna was Patricia's neighbor, a woman I had met perhaps 4 times at family gatherings over the years. She was warm, unremarkable, the kind of person who circulates at events and remembers names. She had provided a corroborating statement that gave Patricia's report its third-party weight. Her statement said she had observed the child appearing unkempt on multiple occasions and had concerns about the adequacy of supervision. I found out about Donna's specific role in all of this from Donna's own daughter. Donna's daughter, whose name I am not going to share, called me on a Thursday evening in December. She had seen something her mother had written notes about what to include in the statement in Patricia's handwriting. She called me because, she said, she thought what had happened was wrong and she thought I should know. Her voice was shaking the entire call. She was not doing something easy. I thanked her. I recorded nothing on my end. I told her I was going to tell my attorney and asked if she would be willing to share what she had found with him directly. She said she would. Marcus filed a complaint with the CPS office regarding the corroborating statement the following week. I want to tell you about one specific night during the 8 weeks of the investigation, because I think it captures what that period felt like from the inside in a way that the legal timeline does not. It was a Wednesday evening in December. I had bathed Lily. She had been going through a phase where she insisted on being wrapped in the towel like a burrito immediately after, which she found extremely funny and which I had learned to execute efficiently. I had wrapped her up. She had laughed. I had carried her to her room, set her on her bed, and helped her into her pajamas, the ones with the small foxes on them that she had specifically requested and which had been a source of significant satisfaction since arriving. I read her 2 books. She asked for a third. I read the third. She fell asleep approximately halfway through the third, which was typical, and I finished it anyway because I had learned she sometimes notices if I skip the ending. I went into the hallway. I sat down on the floor with my back against her door. The hallway in my apartment is narrow. It connects her room to the living area and has a small window at the end that at night shows only the glow of the building across from ours, which is a yellowish light that comes through the blinds in thin horizontal strips. I sat on that floor for a long time, not crying, not panicking. Just sitting in the specific quiet of a hallway while a 5-year-old slept 6 inches behind me and 8 weeks of a CPS investigation waited for Monday morning. I thought about Renata. I thought about the Sunday in March when the neighbor called me. I thought about the specific look on Lily's face at the funeral. She had not fully understood it yet, which was a mercy, and which was also the specific agony of knowing she would have to understand it more as she got older. I thought about Patricia calling us unstable. This hallway, this apartment, this child sleeping with her fox pajamas and her specific opinions about butter and her horses that looked like abstract art. I thought, they do not know me at all. And then I thought, that's actually useful. I got up off the floor. I went to my desk. I pulled up the document where I had been keeping notes since November, dates, conversations, observations, everything Marcus had asked me to track. I added the date and the time and I wrote, Lily bathed and in bed. Investigation continues. She doesn't know. She asked for a third book tonight. I read it. Then I closed the laptop and went to bed. The CPS investigation closed in January. The findings were documented. No evidence of neglect. No evidence of instability. Home environment assessed as appropriate and loving. Lily's developmental progress noted as strong. Dr. Anand's written statement was part of the record. The complaint about Donna's coach statement was noted in the file. The report was determined to be unfounded. Marla Okafor called me the morning the finding was issued. She said, the investigation is closed in your favor. You'll receive the written finding by mail within 5 business days. I said, thank you, she said. Mr. Carter, for what it's worth, Lily is clearly well cared for. I thanked her again. I hung up. I did not celebrate. I sat at my desk and I looked at the whiteboard wall across the room, which had an evolving horse situation on it that had been in progress for about 3 weeks, and I thought, we're not done yet. We weren't done yet. Because the guardianship proceeding Marcus had filed was still moving. And what happened in that proceeding is the part of this story that I want you to understand most clearly. The formal guardianship hearing was scheduled for February. In the weeks leading up to it, 3 things happened in sequence that I want to tell you about because each one mattered. The first was Dr. Anand. She provided a written statement for the guardianship proceeding. It was 4 paragraphs. It described Lily's development, her health, her emotional well-being, and the consistency and quality of OP's involvement in her care. It documented Patricia's prior phone call with concerns, noting that those concerns were not supported by clinical observation. It was clear and specific and professional, and when I read it, I had to put it down for a moment and just be still. The second was the adoption agency records. Marcus obtained them through the formal discovery process in the guardianship proceeding. They confirmed the September 19th contact date. They confirmed that Brendan and his wife had expressed interest in adopting a child in the specific age range of 3 to 6 within their family network. Within their family network, that phrase. In the specific age range. Brendan had not stumbled into this. He had articulated it. He had put it in a form. He had given it to an adoption agency 6 weeks before the report was filed. The third was Donna's daughter. She provided a written account of what she had found in the notes in Patricia's handwriting, the instructions for what to include in a statement, and submitted it to Marcus for inclusion in the guardianship proceeding. When all 3 of these things were assembled, what they showed was not a concerned aunt who had raised worries in good faith. What they showed was a plan, a timeline, a fruited witness, a prepositioned alternative family. A coordinated effort carried out over months against a man who was raising a dead woman's child and doing it well. Patricia hired an attorney. Her attorney filed a motion to intervene in the guardianship proceeding, arguing that Patricia had standing as a concerned family member and that the court should consider the broader family context in determining what was best for Lily. Marcus read the motion. He called me. He said, they're going to argue best interests of the child and point to Brendan's home situation, married, homeowners, more space, 1-parent home, full-time. I said, they make that argument? He said, they can make any argument. Whether it lands. I said, what do we have? He said, we have a CPS report determined to be unfounded. We have a pediatrician's written assessment that is unambiguously positive. We have the adoption agency record showing premeditation. We have a documented coach witness statement. We have 8 months of documented, stable, continuous care by you. And we have Lily's own attachment, which the court-appointed evaluator will. SS. He paused. And he said, they have a larger apartment. I said, okay. He said, you're going to be fine. The counter moves, as counter moves in these stories tend to do, carried the seeds of its own failure. Because Patricia's intervention brought her directly into the legal process. And in the legal process, the adoption agency records were disclosed to the court. And in the court, the judge, a magistrate judge named Ellen Hurst, who had been doing family law for 22 years, read those records. And when she read those records, she asked Patricia's attorney, in open court, to explain the September 19th contact date. Patricia's attorney said it was a private and personal inquiry that had no bearing on the report filed in November. Judge Hurst said, I'm going to disagree with that characterization. The hearing lasted 3 days. I am not going to walk you through every hour of it because some of it belongs to Lily and to the private process of a court that was trying to do right by a 5-year-old girl, and I want to respect that. But I want to tell you the specific things I remember. I remember Patricia sitting in the courtroom on the first day. She was across the room. I had been told by Marcus not to look at her, not because it would hurt my case, but because it wouldn't help it, and because anything I felt looking at her was going to show on my face, and I needed my face to be steady. I followed that instruction. I did not look at Patricia once during the 3 days of the hearing. I am not certain she understood that this was strategic. I think she may have thought I was not able to look at her. She was wrong about that. I remember Dr. Ann testifying. She was clear and specific, and she used the phrase thriving in a consistent and loving environment in reference to Lily, and I had to work very hard not to react to that in the middle of a courtroom. I remember Brendan's wife sitting in the gallery. I remember thinking that she looked tired in the way that people look tired when they have been told a story by someone they loved about something being a good idea and are only now learning the full dimensions of the story. I remember Judge Hurst's voice when she issued her ruling at the end of the third day. She said, the court finds that the child Lily has a stable, documented, loving environment with her current guardian. The court further finds that the CPS report, determined by the investigating agency to be unfounded, was filed in a context that raises significant concerns about the motives of the reporting party. The motion to intervene is denied. Permanent guardianship is granted to the petitioner. Permanent. That word. I had not expected how much that word would do to me in a courtroom. Permanent. I had been trying to take care of Lily for 8 months. I had been doing it one day at a time, one bath, one book, one dinner, one horse drawing at a time, in the specific terror of someone who does not want to fail the most important thing he has ever been asked to do. And a judge had just used the word permanent, and it meant that nobody could take her. Not Patricia. Not Bridget. Nobody. Legal. Documented. Permanent. Marcus squeezed my arm. He said, done. I said nothing. I looked at the courtroom wall. I breathed. Patricia called me 4 days after the hearing. I did not answer. She called again. I did not answer. She sent a letter. I read it. It said she was sorry for causing pain, that she had only wanted what was best for Lily, that she hoped I understood that her love for Lily had driven everything she had done. It did not say she was wrong. It did not say she should not have filed the report or coached Donna or positioned Brendan as an alternative. It said she loved Lily. I understood that was true. And I understood that it was not sufficient. I did not respond to the letter. Marcus advised me that responding was not legally necessary and not strategically helpful, and I agreed with both assessments, but honestly, I would have arrived at the same answer without the legal advice. I had nothing to say to Patricia that would have served any purpose. We were done. The only question was whether Lily would eventually have a relationship with her, and that question was one I was prepared to answer slowly and carefully and on Lily's timeline, not Patricia's. Brendan's wife called Patricia and, according to the mutual cousin who kept me loosely informed, told her that what she and Brendan had done was not okay and that she was not going to pretend otherwise. Brendan and his wife had a difficult few months. I do not take satisfaction in that. What I take satisfaction in is the specific justice of Brendan's adoption agency records being disclosed in open court while he was sitting there, watching a judge use the word premeditation in a sentence that included his name. Donna called Patricia after the hearing and said, "What have you gotten me into?" Her daughter and I have stayed in touch. She apologized on her mother's behalf and her own in a way that felt genuine. I told her what her mother's statement had cost the weeks of the investigation, the stress on Lily, the legal fees, and she listened without defending any of it. I respect her for that. I want to tell you about the Tuesday in April when I registered Lily for kindergarten. It was a form. Simple school registration form, the kind they give you on a clipboard at the front desk of the elementary school closest to our apartment, which had been assessed and found to be excellent, and which had a librarian who, when Lily and I visited during the open house in March, had pulled out a specific book about horses without Lily having said a word about horses, which earned her Lily's immediate and unconditional respect. The form had a line near the top. It said, parent or legal guardian, and there was a line next to it for the name. I wrote my name on that line, my full name, in ink, on a school registration form. At a front desk in Columbus, Ohio, on a Tuesday in April, with Lily standing next to me drawing a small horse on the corner of the form's envelope because there was a pen and she was not going to waste the opportunity. The woman at the desk said, "And your relationship to the student?" I said, "I'm her guardian, permanent legal guardian." She smiled. She typed something into the computer. She said, "We'll send the supply list in August." I said, "Thank you." We walked out of the school. The April morning was doing something nice with the light Columbus in April after a long November to March as a specific relief, the kind of warmth that doesn't feel deserved but arrives anyway. Lily had finished drawing her horse and was now holding it very carefully by the corner, protecting it. She said, "Is my school going to have horses?" I said, "Probably not." She thought about this. Then she said, "That's okay. I'll draw them." We walked to the car. She got in. I buckled her in. I got in the driver's seat. I looked at her in the rearview mirror. She was looking at her horse drawing with serious focus, making small assessments. I started the car. I have been asked by people who know the story whether I feel angry at Patricia. It is a reasonable question, and I want to answer it honestly. What I feel is something more specific than anger. What I feel is a clear, settled understanding of what Patricia is and what she did and what it cost. And alongside that, a specific gratitude not to her, not for what she did, but for what the process produced. Because before November, before the CPS call in the parking lot, before Marcus and Marla Okafor and 3 days in a courtroom and Judge Hurst and the word permanent, before all of that, I had been taking care of Lily in the way you take care of something precious when you are not sure how permanent it is. In the way you hold something tight because you know it might not always be yours to hold. After the guardianship hearing, something changed in how I hold it. I still hold it tight. I always will. But the reason is different now. The reason is not fear. The reason is choice. The reason is that she is mine to take care of, documented and irrevocable, and I chose that, and the choosing was tested and survived. Patricia tried to take Lily from me. What she produced instead was the legal record that makes Lily permanently mine. I am grateful for that. I genuinely am. Not in a way that forgets anything, but in a way that is true. These are the stories nobody planned to tell. That's why they feel the way they do.